So you have the best intentions and you want to move forward in your life. You've got a plan. You know what you need to do every day. You have a lot of awareness, but you don't ever follow through. You figured, I don't have enough power to do this. I don't have enough energy. I don't maintain my focus. What in the world is going on? Well, this is the video for you. We are going to get past that and start creating the life we desire. Hello and welcome, or welcome back to Zen Penguin. On this channel, we talk in practical terms so you can apply spiritual concepts to your life and actually see change. And so today we're going to be talking about how we lose power and what power means and how we maintain power, how we get a lot of power, how we focus, and how we start to have a real big change in our lives just because of what we're going to learn in this video. So let's just start by saying that on this channel, I explain that karma is the hook that keeps you focusing your energy in a certain direction. It might not be good for you, but you're losing power in it and you're staying in it and you're trying to fix it in the same pattern and you're losing power. That's karma. And so let's just use that term that everybody's probably heard at this point in their life, where attention goes, energy flows, right? And so if we really think about that, let's just kind of take that into, if we are focused on something and we are consistently focused on it 100% of our day, then 100% of our power, our energy is going into that thing. So then apply that to what I was just saying about karma. If we are going throughout our day and an event happens and all we do is think about that event, analyzing, building cases, figuring out how to solve it, this and that, we're using all our power in the one thing, then what about all the plans we have for our lives? So that's karma, because we can't move our focus. So where your attention, where your focus goes is where your power's going. So now we can start to get to the real issue of what we're doing if we understand that. So what do I mean by we can understand now if we understand that, or we can change it if we understand that? So let's just say it this way. We wake up in the morning and we're at 100% power, okay? This would take into, understanding that we didn't have intense dreams that took a lot of our focus, that are still evolving in the day, causing us to lose some focus there. And I want to use that as an example of how, if you've ever had an intense dream, the first part of your morning might be focused on that, and that is where your power is going. So I'm just using it as an analogy, but let's say we woke up, we're feeling refreshed, we're at 100% power, right? So what happens when we open our eyes is then reality, the matrix, is fighting for our attention. So we are going to wake up, open our eyes, and the things that are around us are going to be a shadow of what's always been. So this is what Jesus means by, as I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, because these are things that are shadow aspects that we're creating from our shadow, because we create from our unconscious. We collectively do that. We all know what a table is. We all know how to breathe. These are all in our shadow. We don't have to consciously think about doing these things. And so when we open our eyes, everything that's going to be fighting for our attention is going to be what has always been. Okay, and so this is really important, because if you remember, this video is about how do we move forward in a new way, but all of our focus and what the reality is going to be fighting for is to pull us back into our old way. And so this is where that's karma, because we're doing the same thing, we're focusing on the same things, expecting a different result, right? Isn't that what Einstein said is the definition of insanity? So let's go one step further to understand this, so then we can get to understand how we change it. Okay, so we've opened our eyes, we're looking at the reality, and we remember something. And then it starts. Our focus goes there, and we've already lost some of our power to move in a new direction, a new focus. And so I'd like to make the example of, we could have one event happen in the morning. It could have took place in 5 seconds, and that could take our focus for the day, all of our power. It could take it for the week, it could take it for the month, it could take it for years. There's some people so ingrained in what they focus on that all their power and attention and energy is going to that. So then they're like, why is this never changing? Why doesn't he change? Why doesn't this change? Why doesn't that change? Because you're focused on it. Where attention goes, energy flows. So we're focusing on the thing and giving it a lot of power. And why? Because karmically, we're not able to move it away. Karma is being hooked into our attention going somewhere, even if it's not good for us. So what we can understand is, let's say that morning, our husband said something to us along the lines of, I forgot my debit card yesterday and I spent $25 on lunch. And then we're ruminating, building cases, figuring out how we can get him to change, helping him understand finances, blah, blah, blah. I don't do that. I bring my lunch. I never spend money, and then you get up and you go and you start leaving and you're not even with your husband anymore, but your mind is still trapped in that. And that's where the power loss is coming from. Where attention goes, energy flows. So you are giving all of your conscious energy, and that is the energy you need to go in a good direction or complete all your tasks, to this spiral, we'll just call it. And so when we get to the end of the day, a lot of times when this is happening too much, we'll be like, damn, what happened today? Like, I didn't finish anything. I don't even remember what happened today, because your mind was in this and all your energy focus was over there. So let's make another example so we really get it before we move to how we change it. So let's see, another real big trigger for us is money. Okay, I want to say it's one of the biggest, love and money. So what could happen is we wake up and we look at our phone and it says we have a credit notification from the credit bureau that we have a debt, a collection that was put on our credit report, right? And so this is a shadow aspect. This is something that has built enough momentum to manifest in our lives because we have focused a lot on our credit in a negative way. That's what I mean by the shadow of the valley of death. Because we've created this in the past and the effect is showing up, but we're going to keep creating that loop. And so then what happens when we see that, now our attention is hooked into the negative. Oh, my credit. How am I going to afford this? Now I can never buy a house. I mean, the list goes on. And that trigger and that attention focus and everything that we do is not only going to keep us hooked in our mind, but now our body is activated because that's a fear-based thought. And so what does our ego and our body do with that? Fight or flight. And so we would, if we have more of the dominant fight from our body consciousness of a pattern we've repeated from fear a long time, then we would call everybody and start screaming at them or building cases about how this happened, projecting it's somebody else's fault. So we're losing a lot of power in that because now we're projecting our energy out, and now our body is using a lot of energy because that's what happens. That's why adrenaline and everything starts going from those fear triggers. So that's a huge loss of power, right? So our mind and our body are using power for things that aren't even in the present reality. It's usually a past and a future, right? So what's happening now, if we could stay focused on that, we would lose no power. We would stay doing the tips and tricks that I'm about to tell you to overcome this and get your power back and start really shifting your life. So after you've recognized that this is what you're doing, I want you to know one thing. I know the very strong patterns of the ego and the body and our beliefs that will keep us stuck there and not understand and resonate with what I'm saying, because I've coached for a long time. I've heard it all. And that is, if I don't think about it or figure it out, then it will get worse. And that is the biggest deception. That is the pattern we're in. That is the belief we have. But as I'm describing it here, if we keep giving power to the problem and not focus in the present to what we desire to happen, the good news instead of the bad news, if we're focusing on the bad, we are creating more shadows of death of the bad. If we focus on anything else, is what I recommend in the beginning, that gets your power back. So the biggest issue with our power losses is our inability to direct our attention. Reality is fighting for our attention from the moment we open our eyes. And what we're choosing to focus on can give us power loss into darkness, or can give us power gain into light. Because light and dark are about our consciousness. It's about the unconscious versus the conscious. The body is unconscious. We don't want to always follow the triggers of the body and the mind. We want to get to our higher self, which is high in the consciousness scale. And so we have to choose. We cannot be a slave to our mind. We cannot be a slave to our old focuses. We have got to get the mastery, and this is where self-awareness comes. And so let's talk about that self-awareness and how it can help us choose our focus and get our power back, because that's a key understanding to the tips of how to do this. So self-awareness and inner work and self-help and all those things, you know, a lot of people are just like, stop thinking so much, stop working on yourself, this and that, just live life and this and that. So I want to tell you what's in it for you of becoming self-aware, becoming a walking meditation, self-help, all those things, is that you are the master of your focus. Okay? And so as this consistently has been happening collectively on our planet, then all of a sudden we have attention deficit disorder, right? Because we're not mastering our attention. We've allowed these automatic programs that reality is fighting for our attention. So it's like, look over here. Oh, this trigger over here. Oh, this over here. Oh, this. Attention deficit, right? So the only way out of this is to become self-aware. So what's in it for you? A better freaking life. Because where energy is in the way that you focus, where your attention goes. So if you get a notification about a debt on your credit report, that would be a huge trigger for a lot of people. The first thing you do is soothe yourself so you're not falling for that trap that the matrix is trying to provide you that you usually do. And so initially, the first thing to do, if you really understand where we're at right now, is to move your focus anywhere but money. Because money is the biggest trap of the matrix. It is the god of the matrix. So you would have to move your attention away from money at all to soothe it. And that's going to be the hardest thing, because remember I talked about, I have to figure it out. I have to call. I have to yell. I have to fight for my rights. I have to do all those things. From the word fight in itself is a lower dimension. Kings and queens don't fight. They process, respond, and they give orders to the reality. They know how to stay stoic. They know how to direct their attention. They see things from a higher perspective. Jesters are all over the place. And so those are just archetypes of what we're talking about right now. Are we going to master our mind, or are we going to be part of the circus? This isn't anything you change externally or with the thinking that you've always done. All it is abundance comes from high consciousness. So you have to focus anywhere else but money initially. Look at the pretty bird. And then once you get past that, I have to shift to something else, you can go back to money as long as it feels good and you feel your power growing. So that's the key. To get yourself stable before you give your attention to things that take your power. First step, first tip, focus on anything that doesn't take your power. And this, my friend, is the absolute hardest part of everything in life. It is what I believe Jesus is talking about, the crossroads. Am I going to go down this path with my mind and stay stuck there, looping, or am I going to go in a new way? So initially, we just have to get our power back, because we cannot go with our mind in a new way in the power loss, in the attention that we have momentum of giving all of our power to. So the first thing is to get our power back. And so it makes absolutely no sense to the ego or the body to just envision, focus on something that feels good, which in that you wake up, you get the notification, you see it, you learn to shift your focus. I'm telling you, try it. That's why it's called karma. It's super hard to do. We think doing it the same way is going to give us a good result, and it never does. So we're asleep to that karma, okay? And so if we can understand that the only way to get out of it is to get ourselves focused somewhere else and then try that and realize it's damn near impossible, that's the work. You won't need energy drinks. You won't need to over-exercise to get more adrenaline. You won't need to detach from reality and go live in a van down by the river. You will, because you could live in a van down by the river and your attention, your focus could still go to power losses. So we have to learn how to master what we focus on. You don't need an ADHD pill to do that. You need to start by focusing on whatever it takes to feel good. Let's get into that. So if you know that money is the god of the matrix, right? And abundance is the God of God. God is abundant. God wants to give us everything. God is love. So if we recognize that, we have to focus on things that make us feel the state of love rather than focus on the things that make us stay in the state of poverty. Okay? And poverty has many forms. I don't have love. Nobody cares about me. I don't have money. I don't have a safe home. I don't have, the love of my kids. Those are all poverty thoughts, okay? And then we try to fix things from that level. We are in a bad energy loss. So what we would have to shift to initially is just something very vague, nothing related to poverty fixes, nothing related to money or all the things that we usually focus on. We would have to focus our energy on something that is good to us, which can be very challenging at first. So for me, it was not to think about anything at all. I would do the Abraham Hicks trick, which was listen to the fan until I could get my focus back from that thing. Or looking at the clouds, trying to pick out shapes, anything that I could deeply focus my energy on. This is why people do meditation, to get out of those mind traps and loops. But meditation is super hard. So what I've chosen to help my clients with is learning to focus on something so deeply it erases that. And it has to be something that has no relation to the thing that charged you up and is taking your power. Yeah. So that's step one. Just learning to move our focus to something very generic that has no emotional charge, so we can learn to bring our focus to something related to how to fix it. But you can't go from this to this. You have to take those incremental steps to get there. So once you can get that, I finally moved my focus from it. This is the work. You're going to recognize it when you start it. It's incredibly challenging, but it's worth it because you lose the momentum of that focus the more and more you do it. And before you know it, we'll make an example of what you could focus on when it relates to money to get your power back and to change your situation, because that's really where we want to get to. Okay, so let's go back to the God of the Matrix. Money and abundance is what God wants to give us. God's kingdom is abundance and the Matrix is poverty. We'll just say it that way. So then I'm only using this as an example because what we focus on that keeps us looping and using our energy in a very detriment way is what the culture reality matrix has taught us. Work hard, you'll get money, do A, B, and C, and you'll be successful, and all those things. They're all a lie. Because A, B, and C in itself is saying, if I do this logically, and then I do this logically, and then I do this logically, then this will come. And so we're not really taught that. That is losing our creativity because we're trapped into a belief system that's going to trigger the shit out of us all the time. So for example, if I A, graduate high school, B, go to college, get a degree, C, get a good job, D, I'll have family, money, abundance, the house with the fence, all the things. And so what ends up happening is, let's say in college you start to get bad grades, then you're always triggered. because this is the path to success. And so then you do the usual loops from there. Well, I got to study harder. I got to do this. I got to do that. And you're losing all your power. And before you know it, you didn't even study or anything because you were all up in your head losing your power. And then the day went by and you're like, oh, shoot, I didn't study for my test. That is the matrix way that keeps us stuck. Because what is the biggest enemy to God's kingdom and abundance? It is this logic that we're talking about that we use to focus that we're going to be successful and we have to stay on this rigid path, and is the greatest enemy to creativity, to using our third eye to create and envision the life that we desire. So that's what it means by you got to get rid of a lot of beliefs, and the culture might be against you, the matrix and its agents will trigger you, and all these things. Once you start to get into, I can control what I focus on and I can envision the life I want and allow the universe to take me there. Have a lot of trust, believe in miracles, because miracles come from envisioning the future you want and the power going to that just from your focus. But you're losing all your power to the ABCD. Logic sometimes, especially when it's looping all the time, is the greatest enemy to getting what you want and using your power in the way that was designed to get what you want. We're creators. So let's just break it down in a logical way so you can apply this to your life daily. So you wake up, this thing happens, you're like, okay, I am not going to let this take my focus. So you immediately start listening to the fan on the side of your bed. You start getting into a good place. And then when you're able to move your focus without crashing out, you would focus on the dream you have for your life. What is that? A homestead. We're just going to use that as the example. I want to get out of corporate America. I want to have a homestead and start living one with nature. Then you would start to think about, I wonder how you grow potatoes and then you can them. Oh, maybe I could just, actually, I don't know. How does that work? And then all of a sudden you're looking at YouTube videos about homesteading. And then you're like, oh, that feels really good. I'm so excited. You can't let the crash out about how would I get the money? Now I got this credit report thing. I'm never going to get a homestead. This, that. No, you keep the focus on the vision of your homestead and you start to build that in your mind. Be an architect of that. My house is going to have a wraparound porch, but you can't jump from there to there because then you're just going to keep crashing out that you can never have it. You have to get yourself neutral and build into feeling good and having focus and power in that. Power is from what you're doing with your attention, not externally. And the matrix is the enemy to that. So the A, B, and C is what we're stuck in, and focus and vision is what we need to move to. And so this whole video, I hope, described to you how reality fights for our attention on the old way and how we have to move outside of what we know and just start daydreaming about what we want. Because you'll be shocked that you actually step through the day with a lot more power. We tell our kids to stop daydreaming, but they actually retain a lot of their energy and power, as you know. So we want to get back our power. We want our attention to go and our energy to flow towards our dreams, not to the matrix logical bullshit. So work harder, work smarter, not harder. People that work super hard in this reality tend to be the ones in the most poverty because they're stuck in that A, B, and C even more. So let's start expanding into the dream, moving our focus into good things and feeling good and keeping that focus, recognizing that's uplifting our power, that's uplifting our whole lives, that's getting us out of our old life and into our new life, all with the power of our mind. All right, so I hope this helped you. And until next time, take care.